experience implies, these people have some event in which they are severely physically compromised. Generally, there's a severe physical malady that occurs very suddenly often or at the end of a chronic illness. Near-death experiences are very frequently associated with cessation of heart function or cessation of breathing function, and very often both. And given that 10 seconds after that the EEG, a measure of brain electrical activity, goes absolutely flat, it's medically inexplicable that near-death experiencers are having a conscious experience. There's so much more evidence behind something more going on with near-death experiences, something that is not medically explicable. There are blind people, including people that are blind from birth, that have near-death experiences, and for most of them it's a visual experience. That is absolutely medically inexplicable. These are people that are blind that for the first experience in their life where they've had vision and can see things in the world was during their near-death experience. There is no other explanation for that. Time and time again we hear accounts of people that had their near-death experience and their consciousness separates from their body. So from a vantage point of their consciousness apart from their body, they're able to see and hear what's going on around them while they're being resuscitated. Very often they can see incredible detail of the events going on around them. Out of all the near-death experiencers that I've studied that had their consciousness come apart from their body and where they were seeing earthly everyday events, essentially all of them, what they describe, has been absolutely plausible. And of all the near-death experiencers I've seen who actually went and sought out verification of what they saw while their consciousness was apart from the body, every single time, with only one exception, what they saw was or heard was absolutely correct. And there is no explanation for that, for consciousness apart from the body at the time you're having a cardiopulmonary arrest. To people that think that near-death experience is not legitimate, I would remind them that there's at least 12 to 15 million Americans that have had near-death experience. This is such an enormous number of a shared experience that so greatly affects their life that no matter what the cause of near-death experience, no matter what your ideas about why it occurs, I think there's no question, given the number of lives that it's impacted, that it makes sense to study it. It's an incredible phenomenon, and again, the implications are enormous.
The near-death experience is, in fact, the dying experience. We will all have this experience when we die. The interpretation of the experience is in dispute. Nevertheless, it's a scientific fact, not a belief system, that we will have this experience when we die. There have been 3 major scientific studies of near-death experiences in the last 15 years. And all 3 of these studies document that these experiences are real and they'll happen to us all when we die. So the old ideas that these experiences are caused by a lack of oxygen to the brain, or are hallucinations caused by chaos in the brain at the point of death, are caused by the drugs that are given to patients that we resuscitate when we're dying. Those ideas were, of course, respectable scientific theories, but turned out to not be true. In fact, near-death experiences are the dying experience, and that's a scientific fact, not an opinion.
I think in terms of, yes, certainly in terms of the consistency of the testimonies in near-death experiences, it suggests that the experience is a reality which is not purely the product of brain chemicals, because, I mean, we know from studies of the effects of drugs ordinarily that if you give one person a drug and then give the same drug to another person, they'll have 2 completely different experiences. There might be broad similarities, but not the level of consistency you find with a near-death experience.
Hallucinations tend to be very disordered experiences, and they're nothing like the highly ordered and structured experience that you have with near-death experience. On my website, I specifically asked the question, was the experience dreamlike in any way? And I've actually recently done a formal study of that. Near-death experiencers are emphatic when asked directly, and I did, was the experience dreamlike in any way? The answer is a resounding no. It isn't close at all to a dream. Dreams tend to bounce around a little bit. They tend not to have order or structure. Very often a dream will end without it reaching a logical conclusion in the sequence of events. Not so with near-death experiences. They're highly structured, highly ordered. They tend to have a very logical initial part of the experience, and at the end of a very orderly and structured experience, there's a very orderly and structured end of the experience, and that's when the experience ends. Near-death experiences are nothing like dreams. If you've had a frightening near-death experience like some of those that I've described, there is no question that when you have that experience, this forces you to look at yourself. This is something that really shakes up your life in a major way. You've really got to sit down with yourself and ask yourself, why did this happen? What's really going on here? Is this the reality? It really forces you to understand what is the reality of what's going to happen when I die.
The little intercom, and I said, hey, I'm here for heart issues. I really believe you guys should be monitoring me. Please come and put a monitor on me. She's like, oh, that's a good idea. I was like, yeah, isn't it? I thought so too. So she comes, she puts a monitor on me. No less than 5-10 minutes later, maybe another nurse comes in to take blood. And again, she's telling me the same thing. Oh, you look fine. You should be able to go home, but we'll take a little bit of blood just to make sure there's no heart damage. Same thing I always hear. She puts a rubber band around my arm. She goes to take blood. Next thing you know, I'm fainting, or at least I think I'm fainting. Turns out I'm dying. While I was on the other side, let's finally address that question. Now, I had a little bit of a different experience. I was in a place that was made of like white marble stone and had like gold leaf pillared kind of thing, so it looked heavenly. There was an extremely bright white light that did not hurt to look at, and there was no source. There was no like sun in the sky or anything like that. The white light was just everywhere. But ironically enough, I had 4 people around me yelling at me. I was like, of course I would be in this heaven-like place and people are yelling at me, right? And one of the guys, he was the biggest guy. He was like 8 feet tall, but all like proportionate. Like he was big, buff-looking kind of dude. He was yelling at me, and he was basically saying, you got to go to work, you have work to do, this, and that. And as he was yelling at me for like what felt like 25 minutes, all of a sudden this like vortex opened to the left of me, and I got sucked into it. And as I was getting sucked into it, I woke up back in this world. And as I woke up back in this world, there was like a doctor and a nurse standing above me, and they were, just looking at me with these stares like, what the hell just happened to this guy? And one doctor, or the nurse to my right, says, Nathan, are you with us? And I didn't even comprehend who I was or where I was. To me, this was a foreign place, and the world I had just come from was the place I knew. I didn't have an understanding of what the hell was going on. And as I did start to come to my senses, I heard the nurse who was the one taking blood or about to take blood say to me, that was the longest I've ever seen one go. That's just not a sentence you want to wake up to after that, that whole experience. And turns out that I was gone for about 30 plus seconds. And I came back on my own without a defibrillator. So in my mind, that's a complete miracle. And in the doctor's mind, they said they'd never seen anything like that. Not for 30 seconds. They say it's actually normal. They call it a pause. If you're gone for like 5, 6, 8 seconds. Sometimes they've seen extreme like 10, 20 seconds. But supposedly I beat the hospital record at 30, so.
I'm going to try to answer the questions that I got from the first video by just telling you my story, because that's what everybody's questions were about, is what was it like on the other side? Obviously, that'd be the number one question I would have myself. So I'm going to tell you the story of what it was like on the other side and what information or understanding I brought back with me, because honestly, that is the most important thing. So here we go. When I came to on the other side, there was no white light tunnel. There was no family greeting me. I didn't have that experience. But obviously I wasn't meant to be there permanently. I felt like I was I had a welcoming party there for me, and it was 4 gentlemen. The shortest one was about 6'5", the tallest one was about 8 foot, and the other 2 were in between there. They were all dressed the exact same way, and they were this white kind of Roman garb, like a robe, but not like a politician, more like a soldier off duty. They were definitely more soldier in style than politician style. I believe 100% that I experienced it because I've been baptized in the name of the Messiah, of the water and the Spirit, as was commanded of me to do. I'm so grateful I did that before I died. And I would encourage you all to do it as well. One other thing that I really want to make sure I drive home, and that is that when I returned to being alive again. And the nurse told me I flatlined. You would think that the natural reaction to that would be, oh my God, I died, and oh, how quickly and easily we can die, and the fear of death might set upon you in an extreme way. Because of what I experienced, I had zero fear of death whatsoever. If anything, I was like, this sucks being alive, which I just explained to you recently. But a greater fear, if you're scared of death, which I imagine there's a lot of people on earth who are scared of dying, especially if they don't know really what's on the other side, like I didn't. Imagine a fear even greater than that when you die, go to heaven, come back, and you realize that you didn't live your life how you were supposed to. That you didn't live your life doing and being the thing that God created you to be. My fear of that, once I've come back, was far greater than my fear of death ever was. And to explain to you how absolutely terrified I was of death, I would lay in bed at night when I was a kid, and even sometimes as an adult, I would lay in bed at night and I'd be praying, and I would just feel that black void of death fall upon me and realize that one day I'm going to die, and there's absolutely nothing I can do to stop it. Nothing. It's going to happen. One day I'm going to know, whether I like it or not, what death really is. And it would be absolutely just, I'd freeze in an absolute stunning fear. The fear of me dying and not have lived the life that I was proud of and not have done the things that I knew I was born to do was even more terrifying of that now that I've gone to heaven, since I don't have that fear. And that's the best way I can describe that. So if you have a passion, if you have a yearning to do something or be something or say something to the world, you need to do it. Trust me, you need to do it. However, in contrary to that suggestion, on the other side, none of it matters. And I want to make sure that people understand how much nothing you ever do on this side matters, except for whatever you do for God. Whatever you do for God here is the only thing on the other side that matters whatsoever. I liken this reality, this plane of existence that we live in, to be like prom. When you're in high school, you think about prom and graduation as like the greatest, most important moment of your entire life, and depending on how all that goes down will define how the rest of your life is going to be. But the moment you step foot into your prom and you walk onto the dance floor and you see all your friends, you realize that that night and that event will never have any effect on your life whatsoever. And then, of course, as you look back on prom, you realize that it didn't affect you whatsoever, except for maybe your family's checkbook. That's about it. Maybe you have some good memories, but it doesn't affect the way that your life came out. Well, that's how this is. In this life, we think that every little thing we do, everything we do is so significant and so important and matters so much, and it doesn't at all. If you were the most famous person in the world and you did the most good deeds in the world because you're just a good person like that, on the other end, nobody will ever remember that. And if you're a bad person, you won't even know the people in heaven, because I honestly believe you're going to go the other place. But that's not the point. The point is that the only thing that matters, truly, the only thing that will even carry over is what you do for God's kingdom building. That's it.